All right, welcome everybody to week 2, day 2. We also have Mr. Bell in the audience. Mr. Bell is my TA for a number of semesters and is currently in beautiful Texas. Mr. Bell, do you want to say anything about game development or programming in general? Any life advice to the students of the summer of 21? Are you not in audio? That's fine. I don't know, my game dev is a great way to have fun and to get into programming. Yeah, that's true. And yeah, absolutely. So your next homework assignment for the game development side of things is I'd like for everybody to install Ironcast. It is free for another 2 days. So if you are in the Epic Games Store, click on the Store tab and install Ironcast. I played it for a few hours last night, so I've got my own opinions on it. There's things I like, things I don't like, and what you guys are going to do is you're going to play this game for, I don't know, hour or two, something like that, and you're going to write a short essay analyzing it using the elements of game design that we've been talking about. Competitive, cooperative, is it intelligence-based or dexterity-based, that kind of stuff, but you're going to write it actually in English. And what you're going to do then is, isn't it the kind of, it is a Connect 3 game, but there you can see the tree a little better now. It is, and there's thunder and lightning going on, which is cool. It is a Connect 3 game, but it's not 3 in a row. So if you it's kind of weird that like you can't click on these pictures like in Steam. Like if I'm gonna buy a game, like I want to be able to zoom in and look at it, you know what I mean? It's just an odd thing. But I don't know if you guys can see this right here. You can drag any path to connect in a row, and so
there's a thunderstorm outside.
Yes, there is, girl. It's very exciting. Don't go outside, but you can watch it. Okay? So you can click and drag a path, and so that actually opens up a lot of interesting, at least it's a little bit more interesting than your normal Connect 3, Connect 4, Connect 5 moves. And so you use the matching to gather resource points for your mecha, ammunition, energy, coolant, and repair, and also scrap, which is just like for leveling up and stuff. So yeah, so you play essentially Bejeweled or one of those kinds of games. There you go, you can see that right there. And you put things into your mech, and then you play. Kayla, a little loud. And then you fight, another mecha that's doing the same thing. So that's the game. Like I said, I have my opinions on it, and it's free. So, like I said, I don't really like making students pay money to be in this class. So it's called Ironcast, and make sure you pick it up within the next day at 8 a.m. on 15th. So yeah, try and get that now and install now. It's a small game. It's not very large. Let's see if they'll tell you how big it is. Good. Yeah. So it's 700 megs. It's not a large game. I also have Werewolf installed on here, but I haven't actually played it yet, so check that out later. Having a hard time loading video. I might be able to fix it soon, but can you hear my audio at least? So download Ironcast on Epic Games Store. Okay. All right. Cool. So we will continue our discussion of landscaping today. So I'm going to go ahead and launch my summer 2021 example, and then we'll talk about this a little bit too. Hey, Christian Barr's here too. Christian, say hi to people. You like Christian's another former student. I'll unmute you, Christian. If you have any advice you'd like to share, he just graduated from UC Irvine. Do you have any advice you'd like to share with the students?
Don't skip class. I can't really talk. I'm in another
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, don't skip class. Okay, good advice. Okay. All right, cool. So here we are with landscapes, and there's kind of three things that need to be done to make landscapes not look like these sort of lumps of taffy. The first is to get a better texture on there. The second is to make the landscape itself not look like, sort of the earth was without form and void, if you know what I'm talking about. And the third is to add waterfalls and lakes and rivers and oceans and things like that. So we'll take those one at a time, and you'll have I guess it won't be due tomorrow, because your daily work for today is to play a video game and write a little one-page essay about it. So this you can start doing like while I'm lecturing, but you're not gonna have to turn it in for 2 days. It looks good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool.
Why
Thanks.
is there a stone there?
I don't know. I wanted there to be a stone there.
Huh, looks cool.
Yeah, and then there's like a little entrance. Have you ever seen something like this in Skyrim before, where they like have a little cave entrance?
I've seen it. Oh, yeah, but I've also seen it in Valheim and also Mario Odyssey.
That's right. Cool. Yeah, it's a common trick in Valheim. They also don't allow caves, but they do have meshes in the world like that, and so
troll caves.
yeah, but you can't
Build one.
you can't tunnel underneath the land.
Except for.
However, they have rocks and things like that. So, and they have destructible rocks, which is kind of cool. So you can kind of like do. Look at that. So you can kind of like walk underneath something like this in Valheim, and then it'll give you shelter, but it's actually not part of the landscape. The landscape in Valheim is essentially a column, I think, of like 20 blocks, kind of like in Minecraft. You know how we were talking about like genre-defining games? Minecraft is definitely a genre-defining game. Roblox too, I'd say. And so Valheim is like, the terrain is like a stack of like 20 terrain things in a row. And then they'll like sort of intersperse meshes and things like that in the terrain, so that it's not just obviously just blocks, like in Minecraft. And so you can do things like tunnel out underneath a rock like this to make a little hobbit hole. It's kind of cool. And then the troll caves, and what's funny is that none of these things have gravity on them. So if you actually cut away all of the landscape around one of the caves, it'll just be floating in midair. And yeah, so. All right, so let's start by doing a cool landscape. So let's go into landscape mode. And it's recompiling the shaders. You can smell that petrochlor right now. It's the smell of rain. So again, I went to the modes tab and I clicked on landscape, or you can hit Shift 2. It's the thing for it. And let's see. I guess we don't need to do that, landscape mode. So just in normal select mode, I'm clicking on the landscape as a whole. And over here, we've got a material. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to make a new material, and we're going to apply it to the landscape. We can also throw some water in there, maybe. Yeah, let's show you guys how to do that first. All right, so increase the camera speed a little bit. And so this looks pretty bad right now, right? Like, this looks like a fairly unnatural canyon. So what we can do is we can add some water to it. And so one of the primitive things that I haven't told you guys yet about is called the plane. Plane is just a 2D flat surface. They usually don't look very good up close, but from a distance, like they're reasonable. And so I just dragged out a plane. I hit R to go into scale mode, and I'm going to scale this thing all the way up. And you can see that, watch this, as I move the plane up and down, you can actually see it conform to the contours of the lake. And a very easy trick to do to animate water is to actually do an animation, which we haven't talked about yet. But you can kind of just fake it with an arrow drag here. You just kind of move the water up and down a little bit. You can actually see the contours changing, right? Because it's intersecting the valley, and I'll make it even a little bit bigger, and maybe too big. Pull it in a little bit there, a little bit there, there. And so if you animate it up and down, you'll actually see, like, look at the part over here. You can actually see like a wave rolling in and out. And that's a very cheap, easy way of doing water. There's better ways of doing water, but that one works pretty well. So I'm just gonna do that, and then we need to give some water texture to it. So I'm gonna come over to here and click on the starter content and go to materials and choose lake water and do that. And there you go. You can see this thing's all stretched out all the hell, right? So let's see if they have a material. Let's see if they have a parameter set up. So this will be called Lake Kearney, and I will cut that. Oops, undo. I want to just move the material over into Bill, so that all my stuff is Bill. And then if I double click on the material instance, let's see if they have a scale. Nope, they just have color. That's unfortunate. Okay. So I'm going to delete this material instance. Yes. And I'm going to go back over here into lake, and I'm going to copy the lake thing into Bill. Are you guys all with me? So I'm basically going to make my own lake. So this one will be called Lake Kearney again. It's kind of odd that they wouldn't have, parameters set up for texture scaling, because it's a very common thing to do. So I'm going to drag Lake Kearney over onto the lake. And guys. Okay. So here we got Lake Kearney. You can see there's a lot of stuff here in this this thing going on, and what I'm gonna look for, and maybe that's why they did it. Large scaling, noise. Okay, let's just create a new scalar parameter. We can do that by holding down S and clicking, and this will be called texture scale. And I'm gonna have to add a multiply node. And text chord 1.1, text chord 0.5, text chord 0.3. So all these text chords are different scales. So we're gonna have to do this for each one. That's super annoying. All right, well, maybe that's why they didn't do it. Well, I wish they'd do it so I wouldn't have to. All right, so I am going to zoom in so you can see what I'm doing here. So I'm going to take each one of the texture coordinate nodes and multiply them by this texture scale parameter. And you can see this thing is feeding into a panner node. So that's actually something good to talk about right now. A panner animates a texture. It's actually really easy. All you do is you feed a text chord into a panner, into a UV. Do you guys see this setup? Here, let me do it before I modify it. So you have a texture coordinate node that controls how big or how shrinked the texture is on something. You connect that to a panner. A panner, again, animates a texture. And then you put the output of that into the UVs. And so this is basically exactly what we had before, what we talked about yesterday with controlling the texture scaling, except we've inserted a panner node in between the text chord and the texture sample. And then when you have the panner node selected, you can choose how quickly it scrolls in the X direction and how quickly it scrolls in the Y direction. And these can be set up as parameters as well, which I normally do, so I can adjust, how quickly the water is moving and stuff like that. Do you guys all understand this? Text chord to panner to texture sample. Makes sense? So if you want to see if just like what these three things here do, remember you can always right click, auto save, thank you. You can always right click on something and choose preview. And then it'll show you just the output of this node here. And so you can see it's got this texture here, and it's scaled based on the text chord. It's scaled up quite a bit because it's at 0.3, so it's 3 times bigger than it should be. And then the panner node is causing it to animate. So you've got this kind of cloud-like pattern moving across it. And then I'm just going to continue to... It is raining. We got thunder and lightning here. It's very exciting stuff, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and do this over here. It's hailing now. I think my kid got more than he's bargained for. Yeah, there is some significant.
Hailing outside.
I can see it, girl. It is definitely hailing outside. What month is this? July?
I hail you. I hail you.
All right.
Oh, that's a giant.
So, and then texture scale, we're going to start off as 1 by default. Although I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to start off at like 10 by default. And set a maximum of like 100 and a minimum of like 0.1. And I will save this. I might have to do this for the other text chord nodes as well. But
Wait, Brian?
there you go. And so that's a lot more reasonable now. So wow, that's actually, that panner is really fast now. You see that high frequency noise there? But when you zoom in a little bit, it's not a okay. Good enough. That's moving really, really quickly though. When you zoom out, look at that. Yeah, so I should probably spend some more time with that, but that's not exactly what I wanted to talk about today. Anyhow, so you guys, it is a good introduction though to the panner node. Then I need to figure out which one of these guys is panning so fast. And I don't know exactly want to take the time right now to do that, but I guess we'll create a gradient far away from the camera. Watch it pixel dust noise. Yeah, I would have to add 5, 6 more of these things. I'm just not gonna worry about it right now. Okay. I'll come back to this at some point and change the speed of the panner. Keystream at 30 frames per second. It looks kind of pixelated to me. Sure. Share screen. Stream quality 30 frames a second, 1080p. How does that? Is that better, Mr. Shammy? Much better. Okay, excellent. And then I will rebuild the lighting while I talk. Okay, so So what we've learned so far today is that if you want to animate a texture, you can insert a panner node between the text chord and the, wow, it is, here, let me just show this to you guys. So this is, and then there's my dad with no shirt on behind me. Thank you, Dad, photobombing me. Okay. Hey, Dad. Dad. Hey, Dad. It's hailing, Dad. You might want to put a shirt on. You're being broadcast on college television, Dad, with no shirt. Okay. There we go. There we go. Censor my dad. Okay. My goodness. Okay. Order in the court. Yeah. But do you guys see that trick though? If you create a valley using the sculpting tool, remember hold down Shift when you click and you can sculpt it downwards. If you put a little plane inside of there, then it will conform to the contours of the valley, and you can create a decent enough looking lake pretty easily. I'll show you guys a better way of doing lakes in a bit today. Okay, so we are going to make our own landscape texture. All right. So we are going to come up here into materials and textures, and we are going to make a new material. Might want to work on these too. All right. Hey, Mom, can you tell Dad to put his shirt on?
Oh.
I'm broadcasting my class, and Dad's sitting around topless in the hailstorm behind me. Okay. So we're gonna we're going to create something called, I don't know, landscape material, something like that. So I'm making a new material called landscape material, and I'm just going to drag it out onto, did that work? Nope. So you have to select the landscape first, and then there's a couple different ways you can set it. An easy way is while you have the landscape selected and while you have the new landscape matte selected, you just hit the arrow, then it will apply that texture to that material. Compiling shaders, I don't know why it takes so long to compile the shader, because there's literally nothing inside of it. Don't worry, Dad, you're famous. All right. So you see that with nothing, it's just this like gooey black alien-looking plastic texture here. And so we want to not have it look like that. We would like to have a nice landscape. Okay. So so let's get into it. You guys better not clip that and put it on the TikToks, kids in your phones, and social medias. Okay. So we're going to double click on landscape material, and you can see we just have a basic material here. We can start off by giving it just a color if we wanted, if you guys remember how to do that. See if the color picker works. Color picker does not work again. Oh, that's right, yeah. That's why it doesn't work. You have to, even though you pick the red color here, you have to actually turn the value up as well. No, never mind. Yeah? No? Yeah, there we go. All right, cool. Just an update. Neat. Well done. Well done, Unreal Engine. Okay. Stop. Browse. Save. Feel the speed. There we go. And so now we've got a nice, I shouldn't say nice, can't say that with a straight face, utterly horrible looking landscape. And actually when I do development on things like this, I actually like to use really ugly textures because it doesn't let me like ignore it, you know? I have to keep I have to keep at it. There you go. Hi, Dad. Thank you. There you go. All right. All right. So let's start off by lerping a couple nodes. I know some people had questions about that. So how does lerp work? So I'm gonna pick a different color. Maybe I will go. What goes really badly with pink? What color would be the worst possible color? Yellow? How about yeah, that's actually pretty hideous there. Okay. So, let's just see what that looks like. Am I trolling my students or am I trolling myself? There you go. This is absolutely appalling color. Okay. So let's say we want to have both pink and yellow at the same time. I can set up a lerp node, hold down L and click, or I can just search for it directly. So I can have pink, I can have yellow, and if I just feed the output of this, it's actually going to average them together. So lerp, if you don't hook anything up to alpha, is just going to blend the two together, and I'm going to get, survey says, some hideous neon tang orange color. Okay, so if I hook a texture up to this, though, then the whiteness or blackness of the texture controls whether it does the yellow or the pink. Every black bit of the texture is going to do pink, every white bit of the texture is going to do yellow, and anything in between will blend in between the two of them. So I'm going to drag out from that and choose texture. Error. What's the error? Oh, I know I need an input texture. Thank you very much. Okay, so basically any black and white texture works pretty well for these things. Checker noise, yeah, that's an easy way of showing it. So I selected checker noise, and I'm going to pull out just maybe the red channel here. Preview node, just the red channel looks like this. Okay, so what it's going to do is any of the brighter areas are going to be yellow, any of the darker areas are going to be pink, and the result should hopefully be absolutely hideous. Yeah, so actually it's just pulling the noise out, it looks like. You can see it's like a speckled pink and yellow now, and you can't really even see it from a distance because
it kind of looks like cheese.
That's what my students said. Yeah, and so the texture scaling obviously is not very good here. And so let's stop previewing node. I'm not using any of this, so don't get too upset. So landscape layer coordinates, and let's see if this does anything. So landscape chords are like text chords, except they're used for landscapes. Yeah, so we'll still need to scale that. Let's see, mapping scheme. Maybe. Yeah, there. So now you can see the speckles are bigger, right? And so there's a couple different options when you're doing texture coordinates. Let's see. If you do that, then it only uses the X and Y location of it, so it will stretch in the Z direction, I believe. fast today. So you see here wherever it's vertical, just turn the camera speed back down. So you see how anytime there's like a vertical cliff, the things stretch out. That's because it's only using the X and the Y location to choose what texture it should get. So if I come around to sharpen the edge over here, you can see these things start getting really distorted in the vertical direction. But everything looks fine from above. Like it's all mapped. It's like you take the texture and you just stick it on the landscape from above. Auto usually works better. Okay. Yeah, don't care about that. So you can rotate it and you can slide the texture around on the landscape as well. Okay, so yeah, so let's see if I remember how to do this. A line blend, world align blend. So a world align blend allows you to use the actual terrain to determine whether you get pink or you get yellow. So you can have steeper areas be pink and flatter areas be yellow. We're going to use this obviously to make rocks when it's steep and grass when it's flat. Let's see, do I remember how to do this? Blend sharpness, blend bias. Yeah. So we will turn these into parameters. Just gonna play with them. So these parameters are a little bit weird, and so I'm going to call this. Actually, I need to just right-click and choose Promote to Parameter. Right-click, Promote to Parameter. So now I've got Blend Bias and Blend Sharpness as parameters. That is, yeah, we can talk about that later. Okay. And so I'm just going to drag the alpha out from here and blend sharpness. Yeah, I'll just leave it at 0 for now. It's not going to work right, but okay. So what world align blend does is it uses the steepness of the landscape to determine whether it should draw pink or yellow. Like I said, it's not going to work right out of the gate because these parameters need to be set properly. And so I'm actually going to come out here, make a material instance of it. Call this one Kearney Land, and I'm going to set the landscape to be Kearney Land. Now don't skip this part. If you keep working with the original texture and you don't switch it over to your instance, it's not going to work right. So another way you can do this is take your material instance, drag it over to here, and make sure that your material instance is set for the landscape. And so you do that by clicking on the landscape, and then you can either browse over here for it, or you can select the material here and click the arrow, or you can drag it over. There's always different ways of doing things in Unreal Engine. So now that I've got my material instance up, which I will save, I'm going to turn on blend bias and blend sharpness as the as parameters, and you can see that they're starting to get something that is reasonable. Let's see. You have to kind of hunt around for the right values. Some of them are negative and some are positive. Let's see here. Blend sharpness is at 30,000. That's not right. Let's see. Try negative 10. 30. negative 30, negative 20, negative 10, 0, 5. There we go. Like I said, these numbers are really finicky. And so the reason why I do it with solid colors first and make your eyes bleed is because this allows you to really see easily which areas are going to be yellow, and which areas are going to be rock, and which areas are going to be grass, right? So kind of think that looks all right. 6. So 6 is all yellow. 4 is almost all red. 5, like that's how narrow the range is, you know. Blend sharpness, let's turn that to 0. Nothing. Negative 20. Too sharp. Negative 5. Like, do you see how like fragile these numbers are? Like negative 8, negative 12. Six. That kind of looks. No, it's still a little too much yellow for my taste. 6.5. No. 5.5. Yeah, that should be fine. So if you imagine the yellow areas as going to be rock, I really only want rock where it's like pretty sheer, steep things, and then everything else could be grass. Okay. So the numbers I ended up with were 5 and negative 12. Looks like McDonald's and Wendy's combined the color of the logo. Yeah, ketchup and mustard island. So now I'm going to switch out the yellow with rock, and I'm going to switch out the pink with grass. So do you guys see that process that I went through? So I start off by just making these hideous colors, and then I'm going to switch them into something normal looking later, because it can actually be kind of hard to see exactly. Because like when the grass and the rock blend into each other, it's like, all right, where exactly is the line, you know, between it? So maybe I'll turn the sharpness to negative 11, 12, negative 13. Oops, what happened there? Negative 12.5. Yeah, I like that. Okay. So what I did was I made a landscape material, then I made an instance so I could play with the parameters. Because if I didn't make a material instance of it, then what I would have to do is sit here and guess those numbers for these things over and over again. And you saw how many different times, and every time I changed it, I would have to like recompile, and that's like super annoying. So the numbers I ended up with was 5 and negative 12. Okay. So I'm going to just make those the default so I don't forget. The default value is 5, and the default value here is negative 12. And I can set a slider max. I'll just leave those unconstrained. But then every time you change those things, you'd have to hit save, and it'd do this, and it'd recompile the shaders, and it would take forever to get it working right. But now, yep, everything's good. Okay, so now we're just going to replace these ugly things here, and we don't need you anymore. And so we're just going to replace you with a texture sample. And so pink, again, is going to be grass. So I'm going to delete the pink, and I'm going to put in a texture sample here. I held down T and clicked to do the shortcut for a texture sample. Move these guys out of the way now. And the texture sample I will pick for this guy is going to be grass. Can't really see the pictures of them. So what I'm going to do, rather than trying to stare at those little thumbnails, I'm going to come into the materials directory, and I'm just going to drag the ground for grass over. Oh, really? Oh, it's because of the texture sample. Right. Yeah, it's fine. Okay. So texture, we can talk about how to use materials. Okay, so ground grass over here, drag that in. And where do I like moss better? Let's drag those both in. Maybe we'll switch them out. Kind of like the darker one better. Okay. Where can you adjust it from the parameter settings? Never mind, I figured out. Didn't connect the blueprints together. Yeah. Okay, so then we got that. Then we got kind of rock do we want to use? Kind of wish the starter content had a little more stuff in it. I guess basalt, because they don't really have many rocks in here. There's plenty of free stuff from mega scans and stuff like that. But okay, so the rock we said was yellow, so shoot, which one was it hooked up to? B. Okay. Okay, so the rock is going to go into B. The grass is going to go into A. And RGB means you're getting the red, the green, and the blue. You could just pull the red out of it. You could just pull the green out of it, but it's kind of no point. And then your landscape coordinates here, you hook into the UVs here. That will map the texture properly onto the land. And I think I might need to not do the mapping scale. No, I'll turn that down to 2.
We've talked multiple times about how to
and see how that works out. Okay. So I've saved it, and note that I don't have to go back into my material instance at all. The material instance updates when this material updates. So you can see here that I've got grass where it's flat, and I've got rock where it's not. Okay, it's very shiny. Still looks like plastic. But this is kind of what I was going for here.
In the castle, the king takes the place of where the rook was. Does the rook go back where the king was?
Where did
I don't know. I think so.
Okay, so now we need to mess with these other things here. So metallic. We'll promote to a parameter. I'll just pull all these things out of the way. Specular. Do we want to use the specular? So we kind of want to have the rock be shinier than the grass. So I'm just going to do this instead. I'm going to create a constant, and this constant will be how specular the, let's make it a parameter, I guess. So specular promote to parameter, and this guy will be called specular grass, and that's how shiny the grass is. And it'll default to 0.2, maybe grass can be shiny. Slider min 0, slider max 1, so that when I go into the material instance, I can, when I drag it up and down, the smallest it can be is 0, the biggest it can be is 1. And I'm also going to duplicate this, Control W to duplicate. And I am going to make specular rock, like this. And rock should be more shiny by default, so I'm going to set that up to like 0.6. Basalt's not super shiny, but that should be shiny-ish. And then I'm also going to lerp between these two as well. So, and I'm going to use the same world align blend. So it's going to pick between the shininess of grass and the shininess of rock based on the same choice, whether we're getting grass or rock out of this. So A, so when it's, let's see, A is grass, okay. A is grass, B is rock, and we hook that up there. And then if we save this, you should see it looks a little bit less plasticky. And metallic is 0 still, so it's not going to affect anything there. And so if we come down here, you can see that the rock is shiny And the grass is a little shiny, not really super shiny. I think the rock is a little bit. Well, let's mess with the roughness first. That might. The rock looks like taffy still, or plastic. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing again, this time for roughness. So roughness, we're going to promote to a parameter, and this will be called roughness grass. And roughness again ranges from 0 to 1 also. Grass is pretty rough. Roughness means that when light hits a surface, does it reflect off like a mirror? That's roughness of 0. A mirror is roughness 0, effectively. Or when it hits it, does it scatter in every direction? And so grass tends to scatter light in a bunch of different directions. So I'm going to say it should default to about 0.8. That sounds about right to me. It does have a little bit of, especially when it's wet, reflect a little bit back, I guess. So we're going to lerp that as well. And we're going to Control W, duplicate. Roughness grass, make sure that you change the name. Unreal Engine doesn't like it when you have 2 parameters with the same name. So this will be roughness rock. And rock, maybe a little less rough. Set that down to 0.6. And then again, we're going to use the world align blend here to determine whether or not we're getting grass or rock. Feed that in there. Save. Guys, any questions so far? What we're doing is we're putting together, yeah, that looks a little better. We're putting together a landscape. Oh, there's that ramp I made yesterday. We're putting together a landscape that it's a smart landscape material. So rather than you having to come in and kind of like paint which areas are rock and which areas are grass, you can just have the world itself, and it blends nicely. So you can see it's part rock, part grass here. So you can have the material itself kind of do that as well. You can have the material itself kind of smartly pick whether it should be grass, whether it should be rock. Okay. Looks more natural, yeah. It's still not great. Like we don't have, like the thing is obviously tiled. Like you can see the same picture appearing over and over again here. And so we would really want to add macro variation where you add noise and you lerp things together at different frequencies so that when you, like I showed you guys yesterday, when you zoom in on the gold, you zoom out, like you never see repeating patterns. We saw that on the lake texture, how they've got high frequency, medium frequency, low frequency, and they kind of stack them together so that you don't see repeating patterns on them. It's a good practice. I don't know if I'll do that today or not, though. We'll see how it goes. So the rock's still a little bit too shiny for me, I think. So I'm going to take the default roughness down to 0.3. Oh, shoot, that's more shiny. My bad. Sorry about that. Why is this taking so long? Yeah, see? No. Sorry, other way around. 0.9 maybe. Yeah, that looks better. It still looks like a flat top right here. Okay. Better, still not great. There's more that goes into a smart landscape than this. See all these tiling textures over here. Okay. Normal map, yeah, let's add that as well. So let's bring in the normal maps for grass and basalt. So the convention is a normal map will have an _n as part of its name, and the normal is a D. Yeah, so I'm going to drag in an N for the basalt, and which one did I pick? For the other one, did I pick? Which one is that? Moss, okay. So I'm going to drag in the moss's normal map as well. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to lerp it between those as well. So this is the basalt, this is the moss. Let's put the moss on top. And so again, we're going to lerp between them. And we can try these different things here. Because what's going to happen when you use the normal map, the normal map controls, like you can see with the basalt here, you can see it'll add like raised and lowered areas on it, and the world align blend is actually going to use the normal map to determine if it should be grass or rock. And so if you don't want that to do that, you can use the vertex normals instead. So we're not going to worry about that for now. So grass goes in here, and rock goes in here, alpha goes in here, and we attach this to the normal map. So I'm constantly just kind of doing the same thing over and over again. Oh, and I need to hook up the landscape coordinates to the UV so that the normal maps match the regular maps. And you'll notice that when I if I like get close, do you guys see how this looks very flat right now? Like it looks like it's just like, it's just like a plane. Like it's just completely flat. Current compilation errors. What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong?
That was like almost copied.
To normal. Invalid node. Pixel normal double WS used from normal input. So we can figure out what's causing the problem here. No. Node pixel normal double. Invalid node used for normal input. Let's try hooking up that directly and see if that's what it's complaining about. I wonder if it's that. Okay, so if you look at it now, you'll see that there's now grass on the rock, because the normals add a little bit of interesting detail to it. But when it comes out like that, then that's flat and it's grass now. And so if that's a look that you like, it's I kind of dig it. Like it actually looks pretty good, honestly. Because in real life, you get a little bit of lichen and stuff like that growing on the rock. You can actually see there's rock right here, through the grass. And then when it gets flat, it's just all grass. But that is not a bad look, right there. Huh. Okay. So let's just see if there is some issue with the basalt normal map for some reason. Or if it just doesn't like lerping for some reason. Yeah, it doesn't like the lerp. You know what? I know what it is. Okay. So if we use the basalt normal map, then that adds a different normal map to it, more angular and stuff like that. So you can see the moss are in stripes corresponding to where the angles of the rock are. It's kind of a different look.
That's not how you make a good friend.
And you can see here, there's like little cracks and rock all throughout the grass because the grass everything has the normal map for basalt now. So there's these little like sheer shale kind of looking formations. And so just everywhere you are in the map now, there's going to be, well, maybe not everywhere. You're gonna see little streaks of rock through the middle of it. Which is pretty cool, honestly. So you can't lerp using this. It's going black. Why is it going black? Okay. You can't lerp because the normal maps are actually used to control this. So. Let's see. Let's see if we can do that. Yeah, so the vertex normals are the normal, well, I haven't really gotten into the terminology. Maybe I should switch over into that. But now, if you look at it, you'll see that the rocks here have the rock geometry on it, rock normal geometry, and the grass is kind of clumpy. Like you see how there's like a little bit of shadows and stuff like that on here. That's from the little detail on the rocks. These things are just flat mostly, but normal maps make it look more interesting. It makes it not just a flat plane, but like see there's a little bit of shadowing on it and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. And then we'll see how ambient occlusion works on that as well. Let's see if that looks like garbage or if it looks okay. Ambient occlusion is like when you have a light and you have a mesh casting a shadow on the same mesh. It's like my nose is casting a shadow on my cheek here. If you've ever seen like SSAO or HBAO in a game, that's ambient occlusion. It's when things cast shadows sort of on themselves. And there's like a landscape ambient occlusion where like the landscape will cast shadows, things like that as well. And it doesn't look bad. It's a little weird. Not terrible though. Okay. And so we can add in a third. We can add in a third layer if we want, or we can make it have like actual grass growing on and stuff like that as well. There we go. I was turning all black. So if you wanted to add a third layer, you'd go through the process again. You do another roll-to-line blend with these values being different, and you would take the outputs of all of these things and run them through another lerp, and you just add a whole extra layer of complexity on top of the same thing. Do you guys want to see that? It's actually having 3 textures for like dirt, rock, and grass. It's actually a pretty good starting point. Did you lerp it in roughness? Yes. So the roughness, I've got a roughness for grass, a roughness for rock, and these are parameters so that if I wanted to, like if I didn't like the values, I kind of like the values here, they're okay. I could go into the material instance and click and drag them up and down and adjust the values until they look just right. But so far, I was able to kind of hunt around and get reasonable looking values for these things. All right, I guess I will add a third layer then. Okay, so all right, so let's just start off with another ugly color. Let's do ugly. I'll just release it randomly. There we go. Oh, pink again. Okay. All right, so we'll do this. We got pink, and so all of this, I'm just going to select, click and drag. Can select it all. Just going to move it out of the way a little bit. And I am going to do metallic. You know, honestly, you want to see what it looks like if you have a metallic landscape. Shaders compiling. Shaders like little programs. So this is a metallic landscape now. It looks pretty bad. It looks pretty bad. And I don't think I'm ever going to have it be metallic, so I'm just going to delete that, honestly. Let metallic just default to 0. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another world aligned blend. So can I right click? No, can't right click. Can't click on anything. Save. Nope, it's doing that thing again. Okay, let's just close out. Come back into Bill and go into landscape material. And it just went black again. All right. Yay, good job, Unreal Engine. Oh, no, it's doing this thing again. I'll just restart Unreal Engine, sorry. No, yeah, it's doing the thing where like all
Just
the...
listen for the yelling and screaming.
All of
I'm
the...
not gonna
How do you fix the error? I quit, I turn it off, and I turn it back on again. I don't know, I've never seen that bug before. What was it, yesterday or the day before? So, Unreal Engine does have bugs in it. It's a thing. So, gonna launch summer 2021 again. And then yours is really bugged. What is it doing the same thing? Like windows aren't appearing and something like that. You can't get the rocks to appear. So like you go into starter content, materials, not materials, sorry, meshes, props, rock. Like that. The rock's not appear. Like that. How did you add water to the landscape? I went to the basic tab over here and added a plane. And if you drag out a plane, you can see it's really, 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 really tiny. And so what I did was I scaled it up a lot. So you can actually do this by if you lock the perspective, you can scale it up to like 100 or something, and then it'll be big enough to do that. And you just sort of move it around into a convenient valley. That or something. And then you set the material on it to be lake. But the trouble is the lake texture doesn't actually scale properly, especially on a plane. It gets super stretched out. So what I did was I created a material instance of it, or I created a duplicate of it, and I added in a scaling parameter for it that allows me to here. Texture scale parameter. I can turn that up to 20 if I want. And that will affect the density of the waves on the lake. The rocks material to add that to the mountains. Oh, these that was part of that package, remember? When we were in Unreal, this is not part of the starter content. Should have mentioned that. That was part of the marketplace. Free for the month. Dreamscape Nature Meadows. And so what I did was I bought it for free. And then after you buy something, you can add it to your, it'll appear in your library here. And so, what's it called? Dreamscape something. Dreamscape that. You click Add to Project. And then all of those assets that you download get added to your project. And so by default, you're not going to see the bush that I have over here. Right there. That's part of that Dreamscapes package. These rocks here are part of it as well. The starter content comes with just this rock. The basalt rocks show the mountains. That's in the textures directory. So you go into the textures directory here, and basalt should be here. And you just drag that onto your blueprint. So you can import textures, but you can't import materials. There's things called material functions, which I could probably talk about, where you can import a material but you still have to pull all of the attributes of it out, and so it's not super convenient. What I'd really like is, just to be able to blend materials together like this, but you're sort of limited in that regard, at least as far as I know. Material functions are kind of the right way of doing it. Even still, you're going to have this big spaghetti mess of wires. Still not popping up in the landscape, even though the blueprint's connected or seem connected. So you dragged in, so you got a texture sample for the basalt. Let's go into Bill Landscape Material. So when you drag the basalt in, you'll get a texture sample for it. And so did you hook up a landscape chords node to it? This will make the UVs map properly onto landscapes. So that the landscape chords node connects into the UV in the top left. And then before you try doing like the smart landscape with the roll the line blend and things like that, just try hooking it directly up to base color and just see if the basalt, like, just drag it like this, and just see if the basalt will appear when you do that. That's my starting test to see if things are working. Because like if the scale on landscape chords is set to 0, then it just becomes this big smeared mess. How'd you guys fix the normal texture error? You can't actually use the alpha here to lerp for the normals, because the alpha is actually the result of the normals. So you have to use the vertex normals. That means the geometry of the landscape, and all this terminology I'll do a talk on in a little bit. Okay, so the basalt's popping up. Okay, so then you're going to drag in moss, and then you're going to use the roll the line blend node to lerp between the two of them. And the roll the line blend, I set the sharpness to 5 and the bias to -12. And as we saw, those are very, very fragile numbers. You go a little bit up, a little bit down, and just nothing appears. Or it'll all be one, or it'll all be the other. It's popping up, but not on the landscape. It's popping up, but what does that mean? Like, do you have the landscape material set to your material? Like, when you click on the landscape, there should be a option over here called landscape material, and so you want to make sure that your landscape, or in this case my material instance, is set to be the material of the landscape, and then it should apply. Aaron, do you have the landscape material set properly? Oh, we need to take attendance today too.
More golden red peaches. No, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Stop.
Yeah, your blueprint looks pretty much the same as mine, but just make sure that this is on, or nothing will happen.
This could be like the zone.
There's no
the recording while I do this. So I've gotten a few questions, and so I'm gonna make a new lake over here, and I'm gonna do that. I could do a plane. Like I said, when you drag out a plane, it's a square meter, and it's really, really tiny, and you have to scale it up a lot. Another way you can do it is by using a... are you okay? By using a box. And you can just make a box like that. And what you'll notice about the box is that it actually, you know, it's something called complex solid geometry. Let's see if we can pull this out here. And there's some cool things you can do with it. Like you can drop a cylinder on it and choose a cylinder to be subtractive. And let's see. And you can like actually knock a hole in the thing. So by using, I don't know if you can see this here, by using the geometry tab, you can actually cut holes in geometry and things like that, which is kind of cool. Yeah, you can do that by making it geometry subtractive, and then it will just punch a hole through whatever's there already, which is kind of cool. Yeah, and so basically you just put an object out in the world, move it around, scale it into place, and then you're going to want to texture it with something like that. Again, the panning speed's way too high on it right now. Still the same. Yeah, I think Simmons, your thing's just too small. What is the scale that you have on your plane there? And you can see that the rock appears, you know, whenever I create a steep area. Just adding a little bit of noise to this so it doesn't look too perfect. And you can see that as I add noise, like there's going to be areas where the rock comes through, and it makes it a little more interesting to the human eye than just pure moss. You know, the real world's fairly chaotic, right? Okay. So on the details panel, Ms. Simmons, when you've got your plane selected, there will be a thing that says scale. And so you want it to be scaled up 100 in every direction. Is it still part of the lecture? Or are we just asking questions? This is still part of the lecture, but I mean, yeah, I encourage you guys to ask questions while I'm lecturing. It's all good. It's, you know, one of the reasons why I want you guys here when I'm lecturing, so it's that if anything goes wrong, it's not like, because I've taken online, you know, sort of YouTube only classes before, and they're just really, I don't know, I don't want to say bad, but like, you know, you don't get the same connection that you do. Like the whole point of having a professor is that they're there to help you, you know, when you get stuck, right? So, and there's definitely more that I'm talking about today. So, while the lighting is building, I'm going to come in here and add that third layer that I was promising I would do. Why are you not showing as pink? Whatever. Alright, let's take a look. World settings. You don't have the detail panel showing right now, so come up here to. Really? You doing me like this again? Come on. Come on. Oh, it's building the lighting. Go up and reset your layout, like we talked about. So click on the window and then go to load the default editor layout, and that should cause the details panel there to reappear. Or you can come up here and go to details and turn that on, and then it'll show you how big your object is. My guess is your plane is still like 1 meter square. Okay, cool. All right, so we got a new lake over here. A little bit of this, a little of that. Okay, so coming back into the landscape material. Thing is pink. You know what? Let's go with peach. Why not? Okay. Nah, it's not hideous enough. Lavender, yeah, we'll do a lavender landscape. Okay. So now we are going to add a third layer in, and it's just going to add a whole other layer of complexity onto everything. But it'll be fun, so let's do it. So we will do another world aligned blend. Yeah. And that we call blend sharpness 2, I guess. And blend bias, right click, promote to parameter. And again, you can't have parameters with the same name, so make sure you change it. Blend bias 2. And the output of that is going to, so we're going to take the results of this lerp, and we're going to lerp the lerp. Height lerp would be fun. So we'll feed that into here. The result of that will be B. The result of that will be A. And the alpha connects up to the alpha, and we feed that in there. And we now have a third layer added. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to come into my material instance once this saves. I'm going to come into the material instance, and you can see yeah, everything is like this really hideous, offensive cotton candy lavender color. So I'm going to come into my Craniland instance, and I am going to play with the values on this. Blend bias 2, blend sharpness 2, and see what I can see, which is nothing. So yeah, this is kind of what I was going for. So like you can have like 3 different textures kind of together. So I could have like grass maybe, and then moss, and then rock. It seems doable. I don't know if that's exactly what I want. So the sharpest incline is going to be rock. The medium incline is going to be moss, and the flat areas will be grass. I guess that works okay. Maybe I want to play with it a little bit more. That's actually not bad. It's not bad at all. Okay. 6.25. Sharpness, -10. Nope, vanishes. -13. 15, no, negative 12. I'm just kind of playing around with the numbers until I get something that I feel is like adequate. The little top could be grass there. Okay, that looks reasonable to me. Can I see how you added the third texture? Yes. So we've got 6.3 and negative 12 in there. Okay. And I'm just going to set those as the default for you guys. 6.3 and negative 12. Setting these values here actually don't do anything because the material instance is overwriting them. But so I just set up another world align blend. Again, it uses the steepness of the landscape to determine which texture is drawn. And so I've got two of them. I've got, this is what we had before, and I'm just taking the output of what we had before. This used to feed right into base color. Now I'm doing another world align blend, and I'm going to switch out the Cotton Candy Pink with grass. Texture sample, grass. And it looks pretty good, I think. And you're going to feed into there. And the landscape coordinates, feed into there. And okay. Increase the scaling on it so it doesn't tile quite so annoyingly. Okay, so ooh, low resolution mode. Come on, come back. There we go. Okay, so you can see we've got grass, we got moss, and we got rock. And so we've actually got two different. Textures here. And it kind of looks better than what we had before. Still not great. We still need to actually make better mountains. Because these mountains kind of suck still, but you can see that this is starting to look at least a little bit decent, and maybe I want to switch out the moss with something else also. Let's see here. Maybe instead of moss, dirt or something. Gravel, rock. Not really good. Yeah, I guess we'll go with dirt. Okay. Back into here. Ground, grass ground, gravel, moss, sand. Clicked on the wrong one. Now it's definitely got a World of Warcraft vibe to it. It's the Badlands. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it on moss. It's fine. Okay. It's inoffensive. Yeah, I'll show you. Basically, it's exactly the same thing we did before. So I took the output of the previous world line blend, and I fed that into another lerp, and this lerp is picking up it's blending in a third sample here, which is grass. And it's blending between the grass and the results of the previous computation. So the moss basalt outputs here, the grass outputs here, and it's picking between them based on how steep the landscape is. And so for really flat areas, it's grass. For medium angled stuff, it's moss. For sheer surfaces, it is rock. And I'm not super happy with the appearance yet, but it's starting to get not completely terrible. This feels like the equivalent to a perfect field of flowers, like Bob Ross or something. Yeah, we could do flowers actually. What time is it? 1:40. 20 minutes. We can automatically generate flowers. That's kind of fun. It's probably going to take a little more than 20 minutes to do that, but I can show you this. So if we go into modes, foliage, so you click on modes, foliage, or hit Shift 3, you can add foliage. Let's see if we have any foliage in here. No. Right. Pops, bushes. Sure, we'll drag and drop that in there. It's gone, Keelan.
That looks cool.
It's all right. It's done better, but it's kind of cool. Yeah. And so I can click and drag, and then we can just put some pretty little bushes all over the landscape like this. And so now we got, we got foliage. We're actually going to need to import the flowers, though, if we want to do flowers. Undo. So yeah, you can go to modes, foliage, and then you can add a mix of different things. Like I can add rocks and bushes in there, and then it'll do a mix of them. The rocks are kind of hiding the bushes, but it'll sort of randomly do both. You can change the relative frequency of them. So if I click on the rock density, I will turn that down to 1% of what it was before. And then I can spray paint lots and lots of bushes and just get a couple of rocks and things like that. Pretty easy. So some happy little bushes, some happy little rocks. Not flowers though, so. And there's a lot of parameters you can set here. You can set them to randomly. I think by default they randomly rotate, so they'll point in different directions. They don't look completely, like clones of each other. They align to normal, so they will stick out from the normal of a surface. So they're at an angle like that. You can turn that off if you want. Then they stick straight up or something. Yeah, so the bushes are. It only applies to a maximum of a 45-degree angle. So if it's really steep, you see they don't appear. You can have them randomly scaling X. Scaling, yeah. So you can do free scaling and then have some be bigger and some be smaller. So if you do this, you'll see some of the bushes are taller, some of the bushes are smaller, which is a nice little effect you can do really quickly like that. And so that's by setting the minimum and maximum values of the scaling in the X, Y, and Z directions. Z is the most important, having taller and shorter ones. Yeah, so foliage is kind of fun. I'll need to import like flower assets to. Yeah, you do have trees too, sure. Actually, we do have the stylized nature. Maybe we can do that then. Meshes, trees. Okay, all right. So we'll go into foliage, and I'm going to remove these foliage things, and I'm just going to add all these trees into here. If my system responds, I'll add. No. Give it a second. looks like little gnomes for a second. Can we do this trees? Whenever I try to add the third texture is what I end up getting. Okay. Sharpness 2. Lerping. You don't have your other thing hooked up, so you need to hook up your third texture. You need to hook up the output of the previous lerp needs to go. Oh wait, yeah. You need to have your third texture hooked up as the B there on the second lerp node. This thing, it's still thinking. So you need to bring in a third texture and then attach that into the next lerp node. So the result of one lerp comes in, and then you have the next texture go in, and then you have your second world aligned blend control the alpha for it. Yeah, go for it. Right now you've got nothing hooked up to the second lerp. Yeah, I give her permission. Yeah. How's the hail doing? All melted. So Unreal Engine is currently still processing all the trees. You can see the frame rate. So any other questions while this is happening? You can really slow down Unreal Engine. Like once, I think last semester or the semester before, I took like 1,000 flowers and dragged them all in at the same time. And the thing just went... And when you spray paint them out like that, like the frame rate just goes. What do you mean by adding another third texture? Not another third texture, just a third texture. So right now you've got the grass and the rock. You need to drag in moss, or if you've got moss and basalt, you need to drag in grass. Another texture sample, yeah, and then that texture sample hooks up. Can you see the normal map for the landscape? What do you mean by? Oh, did it work? Look at that. Right. Undo. So I can spray paint? No. I don't know if I can do much of anything right now, Simmons. It's tree, spray paint. Ah! Too many. Yeah, let me pull up the shot for you. Bill, landscape material. And I can actually just screenshot this for you. Hopefully there's enough detail in that. Yeah, the thing that's not attached is this right here. That's what you don't have set up, at least in the screenshot you gave me. You have the output of this lerp hooked in, and you've got this hooked up to the alpha, but you have nothing attached to that pin on it. And in theory, we would need to do all these things with like the specular and the roughness, and I'm not, because I know that the area that is now grass, that was previously moss and grass have pretty similar specular highlights and things like that. So I'm just gonna leave it like that. It looks fine. You can see the rock and the moss blending together there, and you can see the grass and the moss kind of coming together right here. Yeah, things like this don't look natural, but whatever. Okay, so for the blend sharpness, did you create that, or was that the drop down? So what I did, let's go back. density 1, density 1, density 1, density 1. Still way too many. So what I did was I took the instant forest, look at that. Different trees. It's kind of cool. All right, so what I did was I clicked on the blend sharpness parameter and I hit promote to, should probably add some lights in there or something. I right clicked on it and shows promote to parameter. And then make sure that you give all of your parameters different names. You can make it yourself if you wanted to by going to scalar parameter and then calling it whatever you want and then hooking that up like this. It's just a little bit faster to right click on something and choose promote to parameter, because then it makes the parameter with the same name and it hooks it up for you. So it's just a little bit faster. You could just make a parameter yourself and hook it in. Just the dicey thing with these things is that these values are like out of all infinite numbers, like -11 to -13 is what works. You know what I mean? Like it's just a very, very finicky system. So yeah. All right. So that is a little bit of a smart landscape. We can talk about how to automatically create grasses and flowers for next time. So before next time, I would like for you guys to download. I'd like for you guys to download and add to your project a certain package. Let me get the lighting going on this. So I'm going to come back into the Epic Game Store here, Epic Game Launcher, and under Flowers and Plants Nature Pack. So under the Marketplace, you're going to want to search for the Flowers and Plants Nature Pack and purchase it. It should be free. If it costs money, don't listen to me. There's also the Meadows one, which is kind of nice too. It's got a lot of cool stuff in it. So whoever it was that was talking about making pretty little flowers, you can see it comes with all sorts of like cool little stuff like that. So this is called Temperate Vegetation Meadow Flowers. And so if you go to the Marketplace, let me just double check to make sure they're free, because some of the stuff I get that's free for the month, and then they go away. It's free? Okay. So yeah, Temperate Vegetation, Meadow Flowers, or the other Nature Pack. Flowers and Plants Nature Pack. Temperate Vegetation is free. Flowers and Plants Nature Pack is $60. So let's not do that one. Let's do this one. This one has, 650 flowers in it, and I added all of them to the world, and my frame rate went from like 120 to 1. So they're beautiful though, really beautiful. Yeah, so this one. So everybody please purchase Temperate Vegetation Meadow Flowers, and then you're gonna click Add to Project. And I'm gonna go ahead and add it to my Summer 2021 project, and it won't tell you how big it is until you start downloading it. So it's only 0.2 gigs, so not bad. Sometimes when you download these things, it's like, it's 20 gigs. It's like, it's bigger than a lot of AAA games. It's not Red Dead Redemption size. Red Dead Redemption's like 100 gigs or something like that. But yeah, you can see it downloads pretty quickly. And then once you have that, you purchase it, you add it to your project, and then all of the assets will appear in a folder there. And then you will be able to do foliage painting tomorrow. Okay. And we'll talk about how to do smart automatically generating grasses, and maybe we'll talk about painting roads onto the landscape and stuff like that. While that's happening, I'm going to come back into the world. It's still building lighting. Cool. All right. Actually, I'm going to cancel this because I'm about to invalidate the lighting. Yes. I know. Okay. So, let's see. I'm going to need to import something, I think. Import asset. Unreal projects. Land height maps. Yeah, I actually want to copy that whole thing over. So I actually purchased land height maps, and let's see. Show and Explorer. So this I actually spent $40 for. I don't recommend you guys do it, but if you see kind of how this works, you should be able to kind of make your own. So there's this thing called Land Height Maps Volume 1. I'm going to toss that into my Summer 2021 content directory. You can see that the meadow flowers are coming in right now. And I hit paste, and then over here it's going to beep at me any second now. No, maybe not. Okay, I just noticed everything's in there. And so inside of here are a bunch of alpha files, and these things are useful if you want to make actually like realistic looking landscapes. So over here you can see I've got my sort of horrible lumpy tofu, landscapes. So I'm going to go into landscape mode, and I am going to just start by smoothing everything out here, make the radius really big. I'm just going to smooth everything out. Like I said, that's why I canceled the lighting. I'm going to smooth everything out, and I'll show you guys what this process looks like. So there's all these like alpha stamp kind of things, and so I'm going to select one, and I am going to go to sculpt, and these tutorials are kind of annoying. Exit. Maybe not for you guys. So whenever you click on something for the first time, it'll sort of do this animated like graduation cap thing. You can click on it and it'll kind of walk you through like a little tutorial on it, if that's your cup of tea. So we want the brush to be alpha, and the alpha brush is going to be this one. And you can see it automatically rotates based on the direction you're moving the mouse, which is kind of cool. If you don't want that, you can turn it off. Auto rotate you can turn off, and then it just is constantly in one direction. You can rotate it manually if you want. So brush strength, kick up a little bit. So if you notice that when I click, it applies the pattern there to the world. And so if you click on these different brushes, you can, if you just tap them once, you get a little outline. And if you offset them a little bit, then you can get some kind of interesting things. And you'll notice that the landscape material is smart. And so as it gets steeper, it turns into rock. And then you can just sit there and switch between these different stamps. And you can make some kind of nice looking mountains. And if you want to do canyons, like let's put a canyon in here, hold down shift, and you can, you see how it like looks decent, put a little canyon in there. And you could actually make, by playing with these different stamps and changing their sizes and strengths and things like that, you can actually make mountains that look pretty good. I normally don't buy things. I usually just go with the free one. But let's do gradient. So we're going to do a hillside. We'll do a hillside. Let's see. Rotate. You can do something like that, where you can kind of make a ramp automatically. Islands, let's make a cool little island. It's way too big, so I'm going to shrink the radius down. So make a little island in the middle of the lake. That looks kind of cool. Kind of dig that. And so what I'm doing is I'm just using these different little stamps, basically. I switch the, I'm in sculpt mode. I switch to alpha. Alpha means use the white parts of the picture to raise the terrain, and the black parts don't do anything. So you can create different islands. Whereas auto rotation is right here, so you can click on that. So we can hold that down and get another island come up here. And then because that's kind of jaggy, I might go over into the smooth tool, lower the strength a lot, and just a little too much. Just kind of smooth it down a little bit to knock off some of the sharp edges on it. That right there doesn't look too great, so I'll pull the radius down, kind of smooth it away a little bit. And so you just kind of sit there and just play with these things and make a nice landscape. Okay. And so I've got a little island now in my lake here, and I've got some decent looking mountains. I might want to add some snow on the top if it's high, but I think that's pretty good for today. So you can find things like this online if you search for them. At a bridge. Yeah. So tomorrow we will pick it up with foliage and automatically generating foliage maybe, and how to paint roads on the world and stuff like that. There's a little paint tool here, and you can paint. It's not doing anything right now because it's not set up right. But you can actually paint textures onto the map and things like that to make roads. But if you're making in different cities here and there, you might want to draw a road between them, and that adds extra texture, extra detail to it. Let me just get rid of this ramp. I'm kind of not super happy with it. It kind of looks garbage. Let's see, erosion. There we go. Noise. Sculpt. Island. Strength up. Smooth that out. Sculpt, click, click, click. Height maps. Volcano, that sounds cool. Neat. Make the radius a little bit bigger. Anything to make it not look like a, ball of tofu. These colors still don't look great to me, but like I said, it's better than before. Okay, I think that's pretty good for today. Let's see, mountains. Okay, so we will call it there. Any questions? So your assignment for tonight is to play that game for an hour and a half, and then you're going to write an essay about it, analyze the different details of game design. I do not know how to create a plane for the water. Yeah, if you're in landscape mode, you can't place anything, so you have to click back into select mode, and then this will come up here. So there's select mode, landscape mode, and foliage mode, and you have to switch between them. Yeah, so it should be page and a half around there, give or take. Let's see here. Landscape, noise. Interesting. Eh. Strength's way too high. No, it's just a big ball of nothing again. That's fine. Mess with that another time. Okay. Save all. That tab only shows options like basic, volumes, things like that. Place actors tab is not showing up for you. It shows basic, volumes. That is, I mean, that's the place actors tab, I think, right? You know, you can always reset your layout by going to load layout default, and that'll put everything back to normal again. I'll start rebuilding lighting while I talk. So, yeah. And so make your landscape and then use the modes to switch back into select mode. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, if you close them, you can bring it back open by using the window option. If you haven't customized it too much, you can just reset the layout. Also, if you get your layout like super customized the way you like it, you can save that layout and then reset back to that if you like. All right, let's see if there's anything in here. Balance. Yeah, we haven't talked about balance yet. Let's talk about that. Difficulty curve. Yeah, this is where we stopped. So we got 10 minutes left before it's lab time. So the difficulty curve is something really interesting to think about when it comes to a video game, which is how quickly does the game get difficult, right? Some games are overwhelming at the start. Games like Europa Universalis 4, which I play a lot of. I've got, I don't know, somewhere 600 or 700 hours in the game right now. It's when you start the game, there's a lot of important decisions that need to be made immediately, and the game has pop-ups that, like, hey, hire an advisor, hey, do this. Like, there's some things that it notifies you, but there's a lot of things that it just doesn't notify you of. Like, when the game begins, you immediately need to make alliances with all of the strongest countries that you can find that you're not trying to conquer. It doesn't tell you that. And so Europa Universalis 4 has a very sharp difficulty curve. Mario Brothers, the original Mario Brothers especially, has one of the best on-ramps into a game ever. Mario 1-1. Let's see if I can find a picture of it. World 1-1. There we go. And so this level here is... there. It's a master class in game design. It really is. Zoom in. So you start here. And you start here, and Mario starts on the left edge of the screen. Almost. There's a little bit of room to go left. And so maybe you try to run left. The screen does not scroll left in Super Mario Brothers. It does not scroll left. It only scrolls to the right. So you walk to the left, you press the button to the left, he hits the edge, okay, fine. So I walk to the right, you hit the jump button, you jump a few times, you hold down the run button, you try running a little bit, then you move to the right, there's a coin block there, you hit it, and a coin comes out. You're like, oh, that's cool. And then there's this Goomba, and this Goomba is probably responsible for more player deaths than like any other monster. It's just a Goomba. You just have to jump over it, or you can stomp on it. But almost inevitably, people run directly into the Goomba and they die. And so, because you have no other options, right? Like, people are like, okay, I should not run into the Goomba. I have learned that. And so they learn they have to jump over the Goomba. And it's actually set up so it's fairly likely you bounce off this brick and come down on top of the Goomba and you kill it and you get 100 points. You're like, oh, I can kill a Goomba by stomping on it. That's cool, And then you're like, oh, well, I hit this thing and maybe I'll hit this thing. Then a mushroom comes out. And the mushroom comes over to the right here. It falls down, it hits the pipe, and it bounces to the left. So it's basically guaranteed to hit the player unless you hit a block and knock it backwards or something like that. But most people will hit this mushroom and it comes over to the right, bounces, and it runs into them. And then they get bigger because it's a mushroom. Is it poisonous? I don't know. I've played games before where if you pick up a mushroom, you die, because they're poisonous, right? So. So it teaches you that, and then it puts a coin up here, and so you're like, okay, maybe we can try jumping up there, and you discover that when you run faster, you jump a little bit higher, or you can jump up on the pipe and jump over it and hit that, and so you then jump over this pipe, and then there's a bigger pipe, but if you just kind of tap the jump button, you don't get over it, and so you can't go left again. And so basically what you discover is you have to run and jump and make it over. Or if you hold down jump longer, you jump higher. Now there's a Goomba in here and you have to fight that. And so that's going to require a little bit of coordination. And if you die, you go back to the beginning, you do it again. And you find that if you run and jump and hold down really long, you get over, and then you got 2 Goombas to fight. And then there's a pipe that you can go down. Most new players don't know about that. Most don't. That's invisible, so they don't know about the 1-up. And they jump over here, and then Goombas start falling from the sky, and so they have to learn how to deal with that. And then over here, there's a pit, and there's a pit too. And so the first pit's really narrow, so you can jump over it very easily. And the next pit is 3 blocks wide instead of 2. And then you're jumping over it while Goombas are coming at you. And then there's a Koopa. It introduces a Koopa for the first time. And you jump on it and try killing it, but what happens is that you knock the shell, and the shell flies forward and it kills all of these Goombas. You're like, cool, I got all these points. Then it hits this thing, comes back into you, and kills you. And so it teaches you, and so basically this game is designed to very gradually increase your skills without going through the, hi, welcome to the tutorial thing that players hate doing. People hate doing tutorials. And so in this game, you just play the game, and the game itself teaches you the skills you need. You start off with shorter jumps, then there's bigger jumps, narrower pits than wider pits. Monsters start coming in from different directions. There's a new monster introduced there, which teaches you that you can use shells to kill enemies with it. And then at the very end, it teaches you about this flag thing, where if you can run and jump off, you get more points than others. And so, and then at some point, you'll press down on the pipe and discover that there's a little coin area under there, and get that. And helps you bypass a big chunk of the level. There's also a star in there somewhere. There it is. So if you hit that block, there's a star in there, and the star comes bouncing out. If you hit that, then you can run through the whole level, killing everything, and it teaches you about the star as well. And so in just one level, it teaches you a good chunk of the game. And then Mario 1-2 is your first underground level. Then you go into the underground level, and it teaches you about like how to get under this. Like if you're a full-size Mario, how do you get underneath that? You either have to smash your way up through these blocks, or you have to run and crouch and slide underneath. That's supposed to be a Koopa, or at least it is in modern versions. So that's a giant trap nowadays, because you hit the Koopa and you touch it and it bounces back and forth and creates a death trap. I don't think that's a Goomba. I think it's actually a Koopa. extra man marshmallow there. You hit that, and the things, the mushroom comes to the end here. You jump and catch it, and then my daughter was playing this, and she's like, "Look, it looks like you can jump on top of those bricks. Try jumping on top of those bricks, Dad." And so I jump on top here, and I jump over here, and I'm like, "Hey, sure enough, look, there's warp zone, girl." And so the thing is designed to be very, very intuitive. And it introduces the. I think there's a fire flower on the previous level as well, but a lot of people they get the fire flower here first, and then there is World 1-3, and then World 1-4 is your first fight with Bowser, and so that's your first boss fight. And Bowser jumps up and down, and you have to like either go over him or go under him and hit the axe, which drops him into the lava, and then you get the. Thank you, Mario, but our princess is in another castle as you meet Toad or Toadette for the first time. So yeah, so Mario Brothers is just a... who doesn't like that? So yeah, so these trees that I added have errors in them. You can just ignore those. I'm going to need to put some lights in here because it's super dark. It's like a dark forest. Okay. So yeah, and so basically there's ways of handling the difficulty curve that are good, and there are ways that are bad. Mario is just a master class in how to design a level to handle difficulty properly. A lot of games they go to the opposite extreme where they make it too easy. Mario kills you on the first Goomba. Like if you don't know how to jump, you run into the Goomba and you die. You only have 3 lives in the game. It's very common for new players to just be like game over, as they're trying to handle the first Goomba, and then you restart. Nowadays games are like, all right, hi, press W ASD to walk around. Very good. Now use the mouse and shake it left and right, and gamers are just like, oh, it's Final Fantasy 13 was especially bad at this. Like the tutorial was literally like 40 hours long, and until you get into the open world, like it was just ridiculous how long this just very linear, no real choices. You're just playing through this tutorial. It's like, okay. And so, good game design, you teach players the basic building blocks for all the skills they're going to need, right? So for Mario, it's jumping, running, how mushrooms work, things like that. And in games are really good when they give you building blocks that can kind of interact well with each other in interesting ways that allow people to solve puzzles in interesting ways. Zelda Breath of the Wild, I don't know if any of you guys have played that, is just a really, really well done game in that regard. Has anyone here played Zelda Breath of the Wild? Just out of curiosity. Rather than giving you like a puzzle where there's like 4 possible answers and only one of them's right, it gives you tools. Like it gives you the ability to freeze time and then impart motion to something so that time unfreezes, it flies. You can create bombs that blow things and push things around. You can do magnets to drag things around. And so you just have these tools, and you can set fires, and fires create updrafts, and so you can jump over a fire and put out your glider thing and catch an updraft. Fire also melts ice, and like there's just all these interacting game systems, and there's more than like sometimes I'd be on a puzzle and I would solve it, but I'd solve it in such a weird fashion. I'm like, that can't possibly be right. And I'd watch videos on YouTube, and it was like completely different. Like I was using bomb, like there were these gears that were turning, and I'd stick a bomb in it, and it would jam the gear. I'm like, okay, continue on, like, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not what I was supposed to do, but it works. Yeah, Breath of the Wild is a great example of this game design philosophy. It starts off, you're on a tutorial plateau, and it teaches you about each of the 5 different tools you have in the game, and then it turns you loose on an open world, and it works really well. So and people can just assemble solutions to puzzles using these building blocks really, really well. Now, modern AAA game designs are so terrified that people get stuck that they make the games too easy. And they put in these really long, obnoxious tutorials. You can't skip because they know if you put in a skippable tutorial, people will skip it and then they'll get stuck. And so, like Valve, they actually made a heat map in Half-Life 2 to see where players were in a level as people are running around, and they would see where people get lost. So heat map kind of shows where people spend most of the time on a level. And if they found that people keep going to this like dead end corridor and like looking around, they're like, well, there must be something here. They would just take it out. So they would, and then modern games have taken that to an extreme where the level is a corridor, right? Like you're playing like a modern first-person shooter or a modern JRPG. Very commonly, the map design is you are in a hallway, and maybe the hallway turns to the left, and that's the map. You know, whereas in the original Doom, you'd have these huge, intricate temple complexes and like running around, opening doors, and going from place to place. But people would get lost, and so, like I said, modern AAA game design, they just it's a corridor, and like if you're looking for a secret, there's a little branch that goes 10 feet, and there's a treasure chest there, and you pick it up, and you get a potion. Yay! That's modern Final Fantasy game design in a nutshell. So, yeah, and so basically, in my opinion, the games industry has moved too much towards the easy side. Fallout 4 would be a great example of how Bethesda has been stripping down and stripping down and stripping down and simplifying to the point of being boring their role-playing games. Fallout New Vegas, in my opinion, was the apex of the Fallout series. Of course, it wasn't made by Bethesda; it was made by Obsidian. But you know, every release that Bethesda does in the Fallout series seems to be worse than the one before. Fallout 76 being, of course, a multiplayer version of Fallout that was a massive disaster. Right? Fallout 4 is just so simplified and so stripped down; it's just boring. I am terrified for the next Elder Scrolls game. Skyrim was simpler than Oblivion. Oblivion was simpler than Morrowind. Morrowind was simpler than Daggerfall. If the trend continues, there's just going to be a button saying, would you like to complete the quest? Yes, and you just hit that for 80 hours, and there's the next Elder Scrolls game with some nice graphics. Yeah, so I think that's it for today. No, I've got 2 minutes left. Yeah, we've talked about luck before. Luck is a way of evening out the playing field between good players and bad players. So bad players like it, good players hate it. And sometimes they will have the luck be adjusted based on where you are. In Mario Kart, you randomly get worse items if you're in the lead, and you randomly get better items if you're in the back. And so it kind of puts the thumb on the scale. Be like, oh, you're losing here. You're gonna get a triple red shell instead of a single red shell. Things like that. So if a game though is completely luck based, and this is actually a warning that I have for all of you guys. The single biggest problem that I've seen in this class when students are designing their own games is they make the game so luck based that it's just not fun. Right? Mr. Bell, who was here earlier, he was my TA for this class, and we would sit there and analyze the games that students submitted. And we're like, this game is just complete. Like, it's just roll a die and move forward. And whoever rolls higher wins. It's like Chutes and Ladders, which is one of the worst games ever. But Chutes and Ladders was deliberately a bad game. Chutes and Ladders is deliberately a bad game. It was actually designed to teach kids that they have no agency over their life. Chutes and Ladders, there's no intelligent decisions at all. You just roll a die, you move forward, and then you'll randomly be teleported forward or teleported backwards. And first person to get to the end wins. Is the worst game ever because you just play it until somebody wins, and you might as well flip a coin to see who wins and save yourself the torture of a half hour of Chutes and Ladders. But it was deliberately designed that way. It was designed to teach kids they have no control over their life. Not joking. That was it's actually based on an old game, and it was called Snakes and Ladders, right? And it's designed to teach you good things are going to happen to you in your life, bad things are going to happen to your life. There's nothing you can do about it. You're either going to win or you're going to die. You got no And I'm just like, man, that is a horrible thing to teach kids. That is literally one of the most depressing things I've ever heard. And using that as a teaching lesson, like, my lord, that's terrible. Yeah, and so most players, most students add too much luck to their games. So I would probably try to, like, a little bit of luck makes things interesting. You don't want a game to play out the same way every time. It's quite boring. It's one of the problems I have with chess. There's no luck in it, and so it always plays out. Like you kind of know what you're going to expect. Whereas if you play a game like Seven Wonders, you get a random set of cards, and you have to like think on your feet. Whereas chess people, they can memorize these books of chess openings, and I don't like that. I don't like it when you can just sit there and memorize. Like in Age of Empires 2, you can memorize build orders and the optimal way of like five on sheep, then 2 on wood, then 1 on the boar, and it doesn't appeal to me. You're free to disagree with me, by the way. I have not heard about the Destiny 2 Trials thing. What is that? Information, is it perfect information? Is it hidden information? I think you guys know this already. Chess, you can see everything on the board. It's perfect information. Poker, it's hidden information. You know some information, they know some information, but you try to deduce what they have in their hand to see if they're bluffing you or not. Balance. Balance is where I'm going to stop with today. A coin toss is a perfectly balanced game. It's incredibly boring. Okay, so people talk a lot about things being imbalanced, or this is broken, this is too weak, this is too strong. And to a certain extent, that's okay. As long as there's an interesting decision to be made, like, it's okay. Like, if everything is perfectly balanced, it's boring. A coin toss is boring. If every weapon in Destiny did the same damage, it would be boring. If they all had the same firing rate, the same range, the same fall off, it would be boring, right? And so maybe in some circumstances, pistols are better. Maybe in some circumstances, sniper rifles are better at long range, obviously. And so having situationally optimal weapons, sure, at long range, a sniper rifle is probably going to be absolutely the best weapon to choose. But if you're playing Halo, you pick up the sniper rifle, and somebody comes up on you from behind with just the default DMR, and they'll shoot you, like, you're going to die. So the sniper rifle in Halo is really good, but it's situational, and so to get balance right, you have to think about all the totality of the game, right? And in the DMR, the designated marksman rifle that you start with in the game, it was fine for the Xbox world, but they recently ported it, the Halo Master Chief Collection, to PC. And so people who have like pixel perfect mouse control, the DMR has no spread on it, or at least it didn't at launch. I don't know if they fixed it since then. So people were able to use the DMR as a sniper rifle. You can shoot somebody across the map with pixel perfect accuracy and pick them down with a starter weapon. So if you're in a big outdoor area, you just go blah, and you would die. Whereas on the Xbox, because the little thumbsticks are super inaccurate and kind of lame, sorry if you're a console gamer, it wasn't that big a deal. If you could hit somebody at long range, good on you. But with a mouse, all of a sudden it becomes this high-powered weapon at long range when it might not have been originally. Just like with Overwatch. Overwatch added in console aim support, right? Like if you're playing on a console, because the thumbsticks kind of suck, a lot of games like Fortnite and Overwatch will be like, if you're pointing kind of in the general direction, it'll hit. We'll give that to you. Whereas on PC, they're just like, nah, you got to be on the pixel to hit them. And so a lot of people, what they were doing is they were hooking up a mouse. They were hooking up a mouse to a console and playing Overwatch on a console with a mouse, so they had the precision of a mouse. And then the game would also have the auto-aim cheating, I consider it cheating, on top of that. And so people were dominating in Overwatch on an Xbox with a mouse because the systems were set up there. And Fortnite had the same issue. And so it can be really tricky to balance, like especially if you're enabling crossplay between Xbox and PC and PlayStation. They got different controllers, you know, and people can switch out controllers for pro controllers or mice. So it's a really tricky thing to do. So so basically, my principle for balance is that no choice should be so powerful you have to always take it. No choice should be so bad no one would ever take it. As long as that principle is fulfilled, I would say the game's balanced, right? Like maybe you're not going to take the I don't know the alien gun in Halo that kind of auto aims at people. Maybe you're not going to take it that often, but you know, maybe in situations where you want to shoot people around corners or something, I don't know. Like there's a use for it. You know, as long as there's a use for it, where somebody would be like, "Oh yeah, grab that right now. We need that." Then it's balanced, in my opinion. That's my take on it. So so when you're playing the game, just think about there's different decisions to make. Think about if the decisions are interesting and if it cause you to think. And if you have to like sit there and agonize over it, like do I want to do this or do that? Then that's usually a sign that it's a balanced game. Okay, so that is it for today, guys. It is now lab time. Please download that game, start playing it. That's your homework assignment. I hope you guys understand that not every professor in college assigns video games as homework, but this one does. So play it hour and a half, something like that, and then write up an essay, and I'll put the assignment up on Canvas. Okay. So and if you want to work on your landscapes, it's lab time for the next hour. I will be around if you have any questions about how to hook things up and stuff like that. You can probably refer to my screenshot that I posted a little bit back. But if you have any questions, just talk to me, and I'll be hanging out with the IS 50B students for now. Okay. So see you guys tomorrow, and hopefully we'll have more exciting thunder and lightning.
It's a good book.
What is that? Big thing, is that people leaving?
That's people leaving. Yeah, it's unicorns.